Always say, action.
Action.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, welcome, Corin Nemec.
Thanks,
Let's
man.
see.
Thanks.
Let's see. We got the. I'm getting your picture up here, and it takes a few seconds to register. So, Corin Nemec, how you doing, man? Welcome to MT Helicon 2077. I am a gamer, streamer, actor, musician, but not an actor of your esteem. How you
Thanks.
doing, man?
Doing good, thank you. Doing very good.
So
Been a
how
busy time lately, so I can't complain too much. I keep myself busy anyway. I'm not one to live a lethargic existence. So
man, I feel the same way. I'm one of those people that I have to stay busy. If I don't stay busy, I'm gonna end up thinking. If I think, well, then it's all over. So you just got done working on a new movie, Drop Dead Fred, am I right?
no,
Or
I
Half
shot
Dead. I'm
I
sorry,
shot
Half
that
Dead.
I shot that about a year or so ago. It's just coming out. It's kind of a film noir, but very, very kind of slow paced. Uh, s- I don't want to call it a comedy, but it's got comedic elements to it. But it's not really a horror because, although it's got elements of horror to it, but it's kind of like a gumshoe diary, a gumshoe detective diary.
Hmm.
It's for such a limited budget, Braun Theron, the director, the writer and director, who is also a friend of mine and also very much involved in the graffiti art scene, like myself. That's how we originally met. But that said, he under huge constraints and a shoestring budget, he I think he pulled off a good film for his first time doing a full length feature as a writer and director. But the current projects, I just finished one called Place of Bones with Heather Graham and Tom Hopper, directed by Audrey Cummings and produced by David Lipper. That's a I mean, I wouldn't call that a film noir, but it's a very yeah, I mean, it's a slice of life uh, character driven expose that really is uh, it's an actor's dream piece. The director. It's so well written that that I think that with the actors that they got involved, I don't think the audience will mind because it's a lot like the Hateful Eight, you know, uh, in terms, but much smaller cast. So you're really getting to know the characters and see the characters behave with each other and find out a lot about the characters and so it's not like a shoot 'em up bang bang fast paced western but the other one that I just finished as well excuse me, called Dead Man's Hand. That is a fast-paced shoot 'em up, bang bang western, classic kind of spaghetti western approach, which I also co-wrote along with Brian Skiba, the director. It's based on the graphic novel "No Rest for the Wicked" that's published by Source Point Press and created by the Minor Brothers team, writing and doing all the drawing and artwork for that. It's a fantastic three book collection for in the graphic novel world. So this is the first installment of that. I had the pleasure of writing the first draft, which Brian Skiba then I did the director's draft of the shooting draft of from there. And that's starring Stephen Dorff, Cole Hauser, Jack Kilmer, who is Val Kilmer's son. I'm in it as well, but it's that's going to be a really fun project. Outside of that, there's another film coming out called Joe Baby with Harvey Keitel and Ron Perlman that I have a nice supporting role in, and and as well as a film called Legacy with Dawn Hathaway. Um, but Dawn Half Kenny. I'm so sorry, Dawn Half Kenny. Um, and a bunch of other ones. I mean, I get confused sometimes because I've also have one that I wrote and produced and am acting in along with Kelly Sullivan and Brian Krause. called Lady Justice that I wrote, produced, and along with my team of producers, expert producers, expert low budget film producers. But that should be coming out very soon as well. That's a female driven thriller, murder mystery. And I'm very excited about that. And besides that, I have other things in development, different stages of development.
Man, so you did Stargate SG-1. I have to say, as a fan of the Stargate series and of science fiction, how did it feel to land that role? Did you try for it? Were you called for it? Did you watch the show before you landed that role? How did all that work out?
I was a huge fan of the movie. I had not seen the series. I knew that the series was a big success. It was on Showtime. I didn't have Showtime, and but I knew that it was a big success because I saw all the billboards and the bus stop posters and the bus stop panels. And I mean, Stargate was all over the place. Once a year there was a big Stargate launch for the new season. And so at least in Los Angeles, it seemed like it was a big deal on Showtime. And so I wasn't aware of how deeply rooted and fantastic the fan base is for it, and international as well. I certainly wasn't aware of that until much later. But I was actually at MGM auditioning for some independent film, with a totally different group of filmmakers there. I can't remember who exactly. It was so long ago. But the casting directors for Stargate had just gotten the breakdown for the Jonas Quinn character and saw me in the quad area of the MGM building, and I had auditioned for them for many years over the past, however many years I've been in the industry since 1986. And we just started having a chat, and they just uh, thought, wow, this guy, Corin Nemec, could be the Jonas, and so they called up to Brad Wright and the team up there, and especially RDA, Richard Dean Anderson, who really kind of had the final stamp of approval on who got hired or not for
I didn't
that,
know
I
that.
think.
Did not know that.
And they gave me the opportunity to do the final episode in season 5, which would give me a chance to work with everybody, see how everybody gelled, see if it was the right fit or whatever. So that last episode of season 5, the first episode my character was introduced, was a nauseating experience because everything was riding on that how that episode turned out. And I was so unhappy with how they had my hairstyle. Then I was so unhappy with the wardrobe that I was in. I felt very stiff and rigid, and felt it just, it was strange. So I wasn't fully convinced that it was going to work out. Uh, and That said, when I did get the call that it did work out and I was going to come on and they were going to introduce Jonas as the replacement character for Daniel Jackson, since he was leaving, whether temporarily or not, was leaving the show during that time period. I was extremely excited, and also very excited to be able to have a little bit more creative control over how I looked as the character. So that was a big deal too. That's why I went like military cut, trying to fit in at the SGC, dressing like everybody else, obviously, and just really, trying to get as far away from that initial introduction of the character. It's funny because in the last episode of Stargate I do, it's like maybe Langara just has some really weird fashion trends, because the final episode I did, I just look like me and the girl I'm starring opposite. We look like twins. We both have the same
Hmm.
floppy Beatles hairdo, or early Beatles hairdos, and these skin tight sort of like like little silky suits, and it was just
Right.
bizarre. So anyway, it's funny that I was introduced in in a bizarre fashion sense, and hair aesthetic, and I exited in the same fashion. So that maybe there's something to that. But I had a great time working on the show. It really introduced me to a whole new audience, and from there, I went on, and that's really what kind of launched a lot of my producing career. Is doing all the low budget sci-fi movies that I was doing, that I was also producing on many of them, and the ones that I produced on, I feel like storyline wise, I feel like, we hit a little bit more of the mark of remaining just campy and enough to be able to, you know have the audience forgive the horrible CGI that's in there.
Hmm.
If you take, because the other ones I did that I wasn't a producer on, they sell you a bill of sale that, you got to take this really really serious. You got to believe in this, and then when you cut to the CGI creature or whatever, and it's just so poorly done, that it makes the acting just like, why is this guy, but if you take some camp into it, and you allow that ridiculousness to breathe a bit, then the audience knows that even the actors themselves aren't taking it as that serious,
Hmm.
to a greater or lesser degree.
There's two particular scenes that I've actually spoken with a few of my friends. One of which Jill you met earlier.
Yes,
There
hi
there
Jill, if you're out there.
there's two particular gags in there that I had to ask you about because we've spoken about it. When you are introduced to the team at first in Meridian, and you see Teal'c, and he's got the golden Apophis symbol on his head. You did this little thing that it got me laughing. You looked at Teal'c and you went, but it was like it was never touched on again. Was that
Yeah.
was that your idea? And also the infamous coffee cup. You always had the coffee cup. Was that your idea, or did somebody say, "Look, let's do the gag with a cup"?
No, both of those. I mean, for me, as the character, being the first time I've ever seen, uh, you know,
A Jaffa.
a Jaffa, that it made sense that there would be some type of reaction to the branded, steel plate on the forehead, that
Mm-hmm.
can't be overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no dialogue written for that. And so non-intrusively, I was able to at least throw a reaction to it,
I
like, well,
loved
that's
it.
weird. All right,
I
anyway, let's go
loved
on.
it.
Let's carry on. And so, on the other side of it, with that, I felt like that the character, when coming into a new planet, the first thing that you're really going to be confronted with, besides all of the 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 differences in cultural norms and things like that, is the food, is the cuisine. It's like anytime you go to a different country, as soon as you get off the airplane, it's like, what am I in store for?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, how good is the food in this place really going to be? And so I think that the way that I kind of pictured it was that Langar just wasn't like a place of, you know, great foods. Yeah, I just kind of pictured it as being sort of this, just a real kind of generic militarized version of cuisine,
Hmm.
and maybe not as many choices of food items that they have on planet Earth. So for me, it was like a way to also, when in studying with my acting teacher Manu Tupo, for so many years. He passed away in 2000, around 2005, and I studied with him from 1992 until he passed away. But he always wanted us in rehearsing for our roles and all of that to try to crush reality into the scene work. So we would do different exercises in our rehearsal process and introduce activities that are non-scripted into the scene work. So, for instance, a lot of people would bring in laundry, folding laundry and stuff like that. That's a really good thing to have to do. That has some complexities to it, depending on how you fold your laundry. How would the character fold his laundry? That's another thing. So all these interesting things, come into it. How would a character who's very very orderly and neat, who folds his laundry meticulously, how would he fold that same laundry when he's angry? You know what I mean? So
It's an
there's all
interesting
these different
idea.
kind of aspects of scene work that when you introduce props and activity to it, it can change the whole dynamic of a scene, and make it very interesting. Because watching people behave, it tends to be is it can be far more interesting than watching people talk to each other. Behavior is a fascinating. We had another exercise in my acting class called human behavior, study of human behavior. And so we would have to go out into some public place and very quietly pick somebody out, study their behavior as best as we could, make notations on it, all of this, and then bring that character into the acting class, and recreate that character's behavior on set. I mean, on the stage. No dialogue or anything like that included, but just recreating behavior. So that I introduced in there a lot, because there's so much talking in that. There's so many characters in boxes talking to one another, and so much lack of behavior. The only way that I can inject any of that in there without altering what's scripted is food and consumption and doing things while I'm doing the dialogue, so I don't interrupt the dialogue or the
Mhm.
flow or the location or anything else. So I can be as least intrusive as possible in creating my character for Jonas Quinn, without without raising too many alarms. Now, unfortunately, there's a certain point in the season 6 that I'm in. I can't remember which episode it was, but when they disallowed me to bring in the introduction of the foods and the props and things like that. And it wasn't the banana in space either. The banana in space episode is
I know
legendary,
that story.
and that was totally it was um Peter DeLuise was directing that episode, and he's got such a great sense of humor. He's, obviously Dom DeLuise's son. I'm sure that it
Absolutely.
was
Yeah.
it was absolute hilarity around the house, all the time. But he's got a great sense of humor. He's very open to the loose discussions about what's happening in the moment of the scene that they're doing and all of that. And so it was me and Teal sitting in a spaceship for like 6 pages of dialogue, just sitting there next to each other, not doing anything. And I'm like, oh my God, the scene is just gonna die. It's gonna die on its feet,
Hmm.
you know. And I was pacing back and forth by the craft service table. If people don't know what the craft service table is in the film business, the craft service table is an area where they put out snacks and food and things that you can drink or whatever during production, to keep people's energy going and all of that. So I was pacing around over there, and I looked over, and there was this big fruit bowl, and there was a pile of bananas there, and I was like, a banana in space. While we're having this conversation, Jonas whips out a banana from his vest jacket pocket, peels it, just eats it while he's talking, da da da. And at the end, without adding any dialogue or anything else, silently offers another banana to which he reacts however he reacts.
That was a great
Which
scene,
is how I
man.
pitched it to Peter DeLuise. So I'm sitting there. I said the same thing I just said to you to Peter DeLuise, and nobody out there is going to find it that funny. But Peter is hilarious because of the way he talks. But he's like, hmm, a banana in outer space. I like
Yeah,
it. Like,
it
and,
worked.
and that was
It
it. And
totally
then they
worked, though.
did
But
the
it totally
scene with the
worked.
banana in outer space, and it became legendary. I got a lot of banana presents and banana candies
I
and
can imagine.
banana toys. And there used to be an order of fans over in the UK called the Order of Jonas's Banana, and they'd all walk around in brown cloaks and stuff. And
I read
as
about
you
that.
mentioned,
I
it's
read about
hilarious.
that.
But so it was fun at first, and what was unfortunate is that the episodes really hadn't started airing yet before some of these drawbacks had occurred. Not being able to get the reaction of the audience to the character choices and all of that. Because once the episodes did start airing, they saw that people were loving the character choices, and the response was very positive. But then they had disallowed me to make those character choices at a certain point, and so near the end, started writing in those kind of character choices for me, but not allowing me to necessarily make them on my own or introduce them to the script on my own. And that was because we did a scene up in the SGC in the conference room up there, and I had like, it was like another one of these 6-page scenes, and I had like one line of dialogue in the whole scene near the end of the scene. And I'm like, dude, I'm just gonna be standing here for like 6 pages, just like sucking my thumb. What am I supposed, and I looked over, and sure enough, they had a little snack table set up in the SGC for the props and all of that. And there was a big old orange on a pile of fruit. I was like, I'll be peeling an orange.
There you go.
So I'll take this 5 pages to peel this orange. And by the time I get to my dialogue, I will have successfully, pulled off one bit of that orange, and I'll be eating it as I say my line of dialogue. Like genius.
It was. It
And it
is.
was. It worked out perfectly. Nobody said a thing. It was great. But then when they got in the editing room, they realized that every single time they cut to the wide shot for everybody to see what was going on, all you could do is look over there at Jonas peeling this damn orange in the corner in there. And all your focus goes directly to that. You just stop listening to what they're saying. And I think, like, what is he doing over? Is he peeling an orange? And so because it made it difficult for them to edit that scene, apparently, I think they should have ran with it and just let it fly. And every time you cut over there, everybody else is listening intently, and Jonas is sitting there peeling this damn orange, even though it's obvious once you get to his line of dialogue, he's heard everything and he's completely there with it, and he hasn't lost one step of it, and he answers in the correct form. I thought it would have worked genius, but after that, they no longer allowed me to introduce food items to scenes and such. The cup, and the cup, I could have the cup on my desk or somewhere else, but I was no longer allowed to drink out of the cup unless it was scripted.
Interesting. I didn't know that part. Well, your character, Jonas Quinn, was told to have 5 degrees from some of their most prestigious universities. But one of your other lines was, I'm as physically fit as anyone on this base. And in the episode Descent, the swimming,
Mm.
man, that's you. You can, I mean, there's no stunt double work there. I gotta ask, man. You can see yourself. You can see bubbles coming
No,
out
I
of your
did.
nose.
Well, oddly enough, I'd been training for that scene my whole life, unbeknownst to myself. When I was a little kid, growing up in the South, me and my friends, we'd always have the swimming, who could swim back and forth from one end of the pool to the other without coming up for their
Hmm.
breath or anything like that, and I was like the champion of this. I had this method of relaxation where I could cruise at a really constant speed without releasing too much energy and without panicking. And then I learned years and years later, I was watching one of those documentaries on those deep sea, those free divers who dive really deep with just holding their breath, and some of them can go down 3 to 5 minutes. It's crazy
Hmm.
how long some
Hmm.
of these people can stay under 6 minutes.
Hmm.
But that said, they have a method of like almost well, not almost, it's like self-induced hyperventilation.
Hmm.
So with this breathing technique, this expanding of the lungs, then contracting, then re-expanding, and then doing this kind of like almost like a bellows, getting
Hmm.
the heat going in a fireplace, just doing the bellows and doing that over and over again for, almost to where the point where you're kind of getting lightheaded, and then taking one huge breath after that. Now you've just completely saturated your bloodstream with oxygen, and so it allowed me. They actually had to edit the scene down. I stayed under for 1 minute and 48 seconds, and when I came up to huge applause. It was hilarious. I mean, everybody started crowding around. They're like, he's still under there. What the? He's still
Was
there. He's still going. It
I have
was
to
quite
ask,
extraordinary.
was how many, like, how long did it take to shoot that? Because the whole scene itself, I was in the Navy for a little while. My own personal record is 4 minutes, but that scene is like 5 minutes. Was there like a relief hose underneath you, or some?
There, well,
Uh,
no, the
uh,
way that the set was built, it was actually built in one of those giant wave pools
mhm.
for miniature boat testing and all of that. This huge Olympic
It's an
sized,
incredible set.
20 foot deep wave pool,
It was
and
incredible.
they built the entire set on. They drained the pool first, built the entire set on hydraulics, and then refilled the pool. And then they had the hydraulics above the water line, and they would lower the entire set down into the pool. So the
Wow.
fourth wall of that set was never there. There's never there. You never see the opposite direction because there's no fourth wall. It's a three
Ah,
wall set. So at any given time, I could just swim out and up away from the set. I was only about 10 feet from, from getting a breath of air at any given time. And they had divers in the water,
mhm.
around behind the camera as well.
That was an awesome scene, man. I definitely, as a former Navy serviceman, I got to applaud that scene because that was incredible work, man.
Well, I
Not
applaud your service as a former Navy
appreciate
serviceman.
that. Um, so for a moment, can we backtrack a little? I'd like to talk about Parker Lewis Can't Lose. I
Sure.
watched it as a teenager. I loved it. It was for us kids. It was insightful because you dealt with some issues in that show that were, even for that type of sitcom, was. I remember one particular episode. My In my own personal life, I've dealt with drug addiction and alcoholism. I've been in recovery for 4 years. In one particular episode, there was an episode about your young assistant. He called you guys sirs.
Jerry
Jerry
Stein.
was dealing with video game addiction, and as campy and
Yeah.
as a bit cheesy as it was, it struck upon something that a lot of people in real life have to deal with: addiction.
Well, it certainly
And
struck upon something, a phenomenon that we see, uh, that has infected our society very deeply, and that is video game addiction. That alone, in and of itself, is has become, because it has a similar, there's a similar cause and effect to drug and alcohol addiction when it comes to video gaming. Because of the dopamine and all of the different neuron receptors and everything that's firing off in the process of playing the game, and how there's a come down after getting off of that game, when there's adrenaline that's involved in the game. There's all these things that are happening because in the mind is responding to what it's perceiving on the screen as to a greater or lesser degree real.
mhm,
So all the different chemicals that are going to be being released when being nervous or scared or frustrated, or all of these things that happen just in one gaming session. I've listened to my son play games, and he can go
mhm,
from elated and laughing hysterically to cursing and breaking his gaming controls and all of
same.
that, all within 45 minutes. And then you say, hey man, why don't you take a break? And I don't need a break. It's like, whoa,
As
hey,
a professional
ooh,
gamer
all right,
streamer,
easy,
I
tiger.
have to agree. I mean,
So
I
I
have to
think
agree.
that I think that the fact that that was addressed at a time, when we were still playing Atari joysticks and stuff like that, that when the hand paddle controller thing just first came out with
Mhm,
Nintendo earlier in the early '90s, there,
mhm.
that we were probably way ahead of our time, and people should probably rewatch that episode. Maybe it should be required viewing in elementary school.
It should. It's a great idea. That's an actually great idea. It was a powerful episode for me later in life. At the time, I didn't realize, you know, that. And then I went back and I had watched it literally like 6 months ago, and I'm like, this is just ringing true, and not only in my life, but people that I've known, and
Sure, sure,
of
absolutely.
of all the roles you've done so many different roles. You were in Stephen King's The Stand. I Know My First Name is Steven. Supernatural. Is Do you have a particular role set that you enjoy? Something that you like to go after? Do you and like what do you do to
I
prep for
kind
that
of
type?
Yeah, in a way, I kind of have sort of always thought of myself as a character actor for all intents and purposes. I mean, at least how I try to approach the characters that I play, and within the confines of the box that I'm put in term that means how much creative freedom am I allowed by the director, by the producer, by the team on set, because uh, I'm not the type of actor to be difficult to work with. Quite the opposite. I always want to find the happy medium as quickly as possible so we can get our day, because everybody wants to go home, because everybody's got other things that they need to do in life.
Hmm.
So the last thing anybody wants is for somebody to be creating problems on set or slowing down the creative process. So, that said, it's pretty easy to gauge how much creative freedom is involved, and how much time there is to introduce certain things to the scene work. And sometimes I fail, sometimes I don't fail. I had a Lifetime movie that I did that where I wanted the character to wear glasses, and to be kind of a nervous sort of standoffish type, but they didn't have glasses with just regular lenses, and I didn't wear glasses at that time myself, so I didn't have a pair. And they were really strong prescriptions. So every time I had them on in a scene, I was like, "Whoa! Like this is." So I kept taking them off and on and off and on, and I didn't realize, how much I was doing that until the film came out. And there's like not one scene where I'm not just constantly doing this, and it's like you're like, "Whoa, what is wrong with this guy?" But I would have left them on, in a more cultured manner, had I had a non-prescription lens in there with regular glass, because it was so unbelievably distracting I wasn't able to just focus on what, you know what I mean. So
Hmm.
that said, it's a double-edged sword.
I
But
recently found out when about a year and a half ago, you are quite the artist. You are into graffiti art. Something I dabbled in as a devious young teenager at one time when I was about 12, but you've taken it to a whole nother level, man. What are some of
um,
your, what
I,
is your
in honesty, I mean, I probably could have taken it a lot further at a certain point. The fine line that's walked there is that, um, there was a time period that, because I do a lot of street art as well, stencil work,
Mhm.
paste up art, things like that. And there was a time uh, maybe starting around 2005, all the way up until they started shutting down travel to other countries,
Mhm.
shall we say. uh, I've been traveling all over the world, and had been, putting in a lot of time and effort, putting up my artwork all over the world. I mean, probably, in comparison to some other artists, like a Banksy or Obey, or others of that ilk. I mean, in comparison to them, I've probably gotten up in even more cities than them. But because of the anonymity factor that I have to or had to maintain, when I was very active doing the street art stuff, it was unpromotable. It's an unpromotable art, except for the murals that I was doing
Yeah, you
that were commissioned, or the ones that are just on permissioned walls and stuff
Mhm.
like that. But anything that was in the realm of the quasi illegal,
you can't just say, "Hey,
was
look what I did."
something that, yeah, I just, I mean, so I had to, with a wink and a nod, was always having to kind of dance around it. So I never really was able to, I think, monopolize on it at the time when I was most active, like I would have loved to, because I think I could have turned it into an even bigger part of my career, into an even bigger part of my lifestyle, in doing a lot more commissioned work, and a lot more, graffiti events and street art events, and then even focusing more on gallery shows and stuff like that, and merch and all of the other things. But and then once the shutdown, all of that, when all of that started happening, I didn't have time to, even I don't think anybody had time to paint, to do a painting, unless you had unless you were sitting on chips.
Hmm.
But it became a whole different hustle at that point, and I really haven't had the ability to kind of refocus back on that and get back into the scene as like I was previous. But it is unfortunate, due to that sort of that gray area that street art lives in.
Hmm.
And even though it's far more socially, culturally acceptable than graffiti art or tags for the most part, it's roughly the same thing.
Hmm. Any other artistic pursuits? Are you do any music? Are
Well,
you
I
ever
do. I mean, I
voice
I
acting?
haven't in a while, but I've done a lot of photography over the years.
Photography. You did a
And
tour. You did an American tour recently, I remember.
Well, I did that. That the Goodbye America tour, as it was.
Yeah.
Not Goodbye, that was a movie I did years ago with John Ames Newton and Alexis Arquette. Scott. No, it was called the Love America tour,
That's it.
and it was something that I put together with my buddy Chad Kimsey and another buddy of ours, Scott, and uh,
Talon Man.
you know, it was just a harebrained idea I had, because in the midst of the this global shutdown and this awful fear of this pandemic that's that everybody was dealing with, and all of that, and I just wasn't looking through it through the goggles of the mainstream media myself personally, and saw it from, I would say, a different angle. I'll just leave it at that, and had no direct fear or concern or worry about traveling or being around people or anything else for that matter, knowing that I'm a very healthy individual with a great immune system. So that said. At the same time, there was this great, like, mis misrepresentation of the American citizen that was going on in a lot of mainstream media at the time, that I was getting all the chatter from, and that it's just a bunch of backwards, racist, bigoted, small-minded individuals that just live out there in flyover country, that nobody cares about, nobody should listen to that. And I'm just like, who have any of these people traveled? You know?
Never
So the
met these people.
combination of those
Yeah.
two things, and this kind of like this hate America campaign that was going on in the mainstream news and all of that,
Yep. I remember
uh,
it.
I wanted to do Love America and cross the border. So my idea was, which I achieved. All the videos are up on my YouTube, Corin Nemec TV on YouTube. I didn't achieve it to the degree that I wanted to, but I got all the interviews done. I got them put together and I got them posted. And it was, I think it's like 68 interviews, 17 cities, 5 different states, all in 30 days. It was
Wow.
insane. Me and we took a we
I'm
took
following
an
along with it.
RV, and we just cruised, and we just drove did a big loop from Houston, Texas, all the way up through up through Missouri and Arkansas, and all came back down through Florida and Alabama, Mississippi. And I mean, just, it was just, I can't even remember all this. I know we went to 5 different states, but and the one thing that I wasn't interested in was anything political. My main goal was just to hear everybody's story. Now
Hmm.
I could have edited the interviews down to be more of a compelling 15 to 20 minute per person interview. For me, I just wanted to kind of let the river find its own way to the ocean with the interviews. So some are quite long, some are relatively short, but to me, I just wanted to hear the story. What was the American story, which is a universal story, a story of struggle, hardship, overcoming difficulties, overcoming familial issues, financial issues, a racial issue. All the things came up, but I steered away from that as being the topic. The topic was, where were you born? What were the conditions you were born under, and how did you get to be where you are today?
Hmm.
That's what I wanted to know, you know. And in achieving that, in the 68 or so interviews that I did, the most compelling factor is that, A, you don't know which direction the 90% of the people were leaning in terms of their politics, because that wasn't the point of the conversation. So in not knowing that, you come to find that everybody has a similar story. Everybody has a similar arc to their
Hmm.
character, and it's just, how hard were the hard times and how great were the good times is the only difference. Everything else in between is just variables of differentiations in the same story. So my main thing was that, we have a hell of a lot more in common than we have not in common, and that's what I think what we should be focusing on, and certainly not being afraid to sojourn with our brothers and sisters out there.
This is absolutely true. Well, okay. So, Corin Nemec, any final thoughts, man? I wanted to say personally, thank you so very much for this interview, man. It's been insightful, it's been productive, and very enjoyable.
Right on, man. Well, we'll do it again when some of these projects start dropping. Dead Man's Hand and Place of Bones, and Joe Baby, and some of the other ones. We can certainly do a follow. Can you see the big lump on my head? I bumped my
Yes,
head on
sir. Ooh, yeah,
the
that's
good
a
one.
that's a nasty one.
Yeah, yeah,
Oof.
yeah. We got one of those low hanging vents for the
Ooh, right in the noggin.
stove top, and it's right at that height.
Hmm. And who knows what the future holds? Maybe someday we might even work on a project together. So,
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, anything is possible. I'm certainly interested in revisiting the concept of Love America touring a new
hmm.
unit of time under different circumstances. So maybe that's something we'll talk about. But that said, everybody out there, peace and chicken grease. Love you all. God bless you, and stay true to yourselves.
You really just used my line. Peace, love, and chicken grease. I love it. I love it, man. I love it. All right, Corin, man. Thank you again so much. Everybody, thank you so much. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. Also, Corin, you want to throw your social medias
Oh yeah,
up here real
if you're,
quick?
if you're looking out there, you can just find me at the letter I, the letter M, and then my name, Corin Nemec. I'm Corin Nemec. That's at Instagram, Twitter. I think that's even Facebook. It's whatever platforms I'm on. If you are interested in the graffiti art or the street art stuff that I do or have done, you can go and see 15 years worth of it on my Instagram, the 169. That's THE and the numbers 16 and 9.
Nice. All right, man. Well, again, thank you so very much, man. And
My man.
enjoy your bananas, your coffee, and the rest of your day, brother.
Deal.
All right, man.
All right,
Thank you.
brother.
Later